Hi, I'm Diana Yoakley. I'm a peaceful parenting coach and mom of three, and I'm delighted to give you the latest science backed research on child development, parenting, and to support you in showing up as the parent that you want to be. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thanks for joining me today on the Delight in Parenting podcast. I'm your host, Diana Yoakley, and I'm really excited to have here with me Katie Kimball today. Welcome, Katie. So excited to have you.
Thanks, Diana. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too and to have you on the podcast because today we're talking about something that parents might or might not encounter at least 3 times a day with their kiddos. Today we're talking about parenting with picky
Mhm.
eaters, and just food challenges kind of in general, and the emotional impact and stress level that it can create on the whole
Mhm.
household, but particularly the parent-child relationship. And so Katie is an expert on this, and Katie helps change kids' relationship to food, both through work in the kitchen and helping parents of picky eaters. She's a former teacher, two-time TEDx speaker, writer, and mom of 4 kids. She created the Kids Cook Real Food e-course, which was recommended by the Wall Street Journal as the best online cooking class for kids. I love that. Her blog, Kitchen Stewardship, helps families stay healthy without going crazy, and she's on a mission to connect families around healthy food, teach every child to cook, and instill those all important life skills
Mhm.
with her Life Skills Now hashtag summer camps. So I'm really excited to have you here today because I know your work is tried and true. It works for families that are using these resources. And so I'm hoping today we can pick your brain a little bit for parents that might not be um, in your circle to,
Mhm.
to reach out for support if they're struggling with picky eating in the home and it's affecting them and their kids' relationship overall. So maybe we can kickstart with that, related to this kind of general idea, and then we can go into more specifics
Yeah, I
if you
mean,
want
picky
to.
eating is such a huge stress for parents and a stress on the relationship with the kids. We have so many
Yeah.
things in a day where we're telling kids what to do and, do your homework and get dressed and do this and do that and then eat your food. And eating is such a tricky one because whereas we could put their shoe on for them, we
Yeah.
can't actually make them eat the broccoli, like respectfully. I mean,
Right.
you can, but I don't think any of your
Right.
listeners ever would force feed. Like that's just abhorrent.
Right. Right.
So it causes such friction in the relationship, and then the more we escalate our requests, our demands, maybe our pressures, then the more the kids will tend to meet that with the same amount of stress and friction, and then the dinner table just feels like nobody wants to be there. That's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like it becomes a very like tactical strategy to put food into kids' bodies.
Mhm.
Whereas I don't know if we can kind of step back and talk about like really what is kind of the purpose of eating together as a family, and like how we can kind of even shift that dynamic and the belief system for parents. Yes, nutrition and vitamins and minerals are important, but all of that is like a biosystem, like an ecosystem, right? Like the
Mhm.
gut and the brain and emotions, like even if you eat the healthiest food, if you're a nervous, stressed wreck, you can't even absorb probably some of those vitamins and nutrients. And you're just actually like putting yourself in a negative versus a favorable state. So
Yeah.
the purpose of like, what are we trying to like ultimately achieve as parents feeding children?
What an interesting question. We're actually filming a new course called Teens Cook Real Food now, and it
Uh-huh.
does a lot. It goes well beyond what our kids cooking class did. And one of the modules is called Why Do We Eat? And so we're
Mm,
approaching that in a three-pronged answer. Why do we eat? We eat for
yeah.
nourishment, yes. We eat for
Hmm.
pleasure because it's fun,
Hmm.
and we eat for
Yeah.
community. And no one is necessarily more important than the other. So when I think about a family dinner, what's the purpose
Hmm.
for a family coming together? Yes, we need some calories to survive, right? We need a decent
Yeah.
balance of macros for energy. We need some vitamins, sure. If we don't get those sometimes, it all, it kind of works out. And like you said, there is a symbiosis there with if you're super stressed, you're not digesting half of your food. And so,
Right.
it really is sabotaging. But with a family, the family dinner has so many research backed justifications and just beautiful, beautiful reasons to eat as a family. We know that when you're eating together as a family, the parents are an example. They're a demonstration or a model to the kids of how to build a relationship with food because we've got our human
Mm,
relationships, but I want my kids not to just eat the right vitamins today at this meal during this minute,
Yeah.
but I want them to have a really healthy relationship with food for their lifetime. So we model that at the table. We build our
Mhm.
own relationships. We know that strong bonds within adults are very protective from risky behaviors like drinking,
Mhm.
suicidal ideation, sexual promiscuity. Like having strong
Mhm.
bonds with adults is the protection against some of those things, and that like
Mhm.
ability, that feeling, that safe place to call home, right? And the dinner
Mhm.
table is this opportunity to form bonds or to have friction. Like,
Mhm.
what do we want?
Mhm.
Like, those bonds are so much more important than vitamin A through X getting in the kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, we also know that family dinners, that community that's built, like it's almost feeding the child's spirit and everything. Because again, research can only see the output, but research shows that kids who eat family dinners more than 2 times a week do better academically. And in fact, they say that family dinner has a bigger impact on academic success than time spent in school or time spent on homework. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that doesn't even seem like a connection that would make sense, which is what I'm saying. Like research can look at certain things that are visible and measurable,
Right.
but because we can see those things, we know that there's so much going on
Yeah.
underneath that when we have that habit of family dinner, like this is what a family does. We come together, we sit, we eat, we commune, we converse, we bond, and it can be a really special moment. And I will stand on my soapbox all day long and say
Yeah.
family dinners, regardless of what's on the table, eat those family dinners. And then we
Mhm.
can talk about the what, we can talk about the how to help the kids build that relationship, but you've got to start with the foundation.
Yeah, yeah, because I think what we see is many parents end up in power struggles at the dinner
Yes.
table, because they see only one. They forget maybe in the moment, or maybe just culturally, it's like
Yeah.
nutrition. Nutrition is important. If they're looking only at that nutrition lens, whereas, like you
Mhm.
said, the dinner it's a multifactorial benefit.
Mhm.
So, what are some ways that parents could keep meal times more positive and connected while still encouraging? Diversity of food choices and variety for kids to try,
Mhm.
especially picky eaters.
For sure. Well, and I have to start with what you just said. Like, why does the dinner table break into power struggles so often? It's a little bit of
Mhm.
habit. I mean, a lot of our parents
Mm.
raised us with you need to clear your plate. You need to eat your food.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost a value. It's almost a moral value, which it shouldn't be. So, that, like, step one, remove morals from food. Food is not a moral issue. Um, and then,
I love that.
but also like no
Mhm.
guilt, no shame, especially
Yeah.
if you were raised that way. You're just repeating a pattern that you learned. We can learn better and we can do better. But also it comes from a deep sense of anxiety. Like when kids aren't eating, forget nutritious food. When kids aren't eating
Right.
anything, or we feel like
Right.
they're not eating anything, we worry that they're going to die. like
Right.
like
Right.
it's
Right.
said that parents of cancer patients have a very fairly equal stress to parents of picky eaters because our
Yeah.
brains go, oh my gosh, they're not eating food, they're not going to nourish themselves, they're going to
Right.
die. So
Right.
so
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so our
Right.
brains go there. We parent sometimes from that anxiety. So like, whew, like that's step one is like we need to trust a little bit in our kids' bodies and their ability to
Mhm.
listen to their bodies, which is a great conversation to have at the dinner table. Listen to your
Mhm.
body. Oh, you're full. Okay. Like if you're really full, I'm not going to ask you to eat the rest. Now, I'm not going to feed you in half an hour because you're full, right? We have to teach our
Mhm.
kids not to break their communication with their bodies, but to actually genuinely listen to their body and not to like their tongue saying, "I think I might get crackers in half an hour here." You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think zero pressure to eat is very, very, very important because, like I said at the
Mhm.
top of the interview, we can't actually follow through on that. So no parent should ever give a missive on which they cannot follow through because that teaches kids we don't mean what we say. Super
Yeah.
dangerous for
Yeah.
parenting, right?
Right.
So we got to always
Yeah.
mean what we say. So if I say, eat your broccoli, you have to eat your broccoli before you leave the table. If you eat your broccoli, you get a dessert. And any of those are pressure to eat, and it's putting the responsibility for the eating on the parent. And it doesn't work unless you're willing to force feed your kids. So if you're not in force feed kids camp, you have to get out of pressure kids camp because they
Yeah.
don't work without the other. So zero pressure to eat. We don't talk about how much we eat. We don't talk about clearing the plate. Ideally, especially if you have a picky eater, don't talk about food for a little bit. Give them a rest. Give their brains a break so that they begin to
Mhm.
believe that you're not going to encourage or pressure or bribe or anything to get them to eat because they've, likely they have some of those patterns and they come to the table and they're a little stressed. They see what's on their plate. So to be positive, let the kids serve themselves. Tell them, don't worry, you don't have to eat that. I'd like you to put a bite on your plate, but you don't have to eat that because that's something that we can follow through on. Keep stressful adult topics away from the table. Try to talk about
Hmm.
fun things. When did you laugh today? What did you and your friends talk about? If your kid is stressed about school, don't say how was school at the dinner table. Say how
Yeah.
was school at a different time of day. If a peaceful family dinner is a goal, you got to be really intentional, right? So we talk
Hmm.
about positive
Hmm.
things. If you want to talk about food, we don't talk about eating your healthy stuff. We don't talk about how much you eat. You might say, "Ooh, this carrot is really crunchy." This is little kid language, right? Oh, this carrot's really
Hmm.
crunchy. It's sweeter than I remember the carrots the other day. So just like
Yeah.
characteristics as opposed to value driven ideas, if that makes sense, rather
Yeah.
than this
Yeah.
carrot will make me so healthy. Everyone should eat their carrots. It's, oh,
Yeah.
it's really crunchy. What do you notice
It's
about
like
your
a
carrot today?
curiosity mindset, what you're
Yeah,
saying, versus a judgment and a
absolutely.
directive.
Yeah,
Okay.
just think about adjectives over values. If you talk about
Hmm.
food at all.
Yeah,
But
at
again, if your
all.
kid's like, especially if you're just starting thinking, okay, I'm not happy with the way my child's eating, I would like to make a change. I just wouldn't even talk about food other than you don't have to eat this.
Yeah, yeah, because it's just adding more stress to like a situation. It's just
Hmm.
cycling through. You've got to like pause to like
Hmm.
reset, right?
Yes, or
And
reset
as
it.
we're and to reset it, yeah. And as you're giving the examples of picky eaters, I'm imagining like a younger child, maybe elementary school, definitely toddlers, like to
Yes.
some degree. But just to make sure parents of older kids also feel like this is relevant for them, what does a picky eater look like in middle school or high school?
Mm.
Is there such a thing? Does it continue into high school? I don't know. And what does it look like? How different does it look? So we're still talking about picky eaters. It just maybe
Hmm.
evolves a little bit.
For sure. I mean, there are a lot of kids of all ages into their 20s now who won't eat a vegetable or won't eat a green vegetable.
Wow.
So if that's something that you're not comfortable with, you could call your kid a picky eater. I hate to like create a label because that's actually something that I tell parents is don't
Mm.
label your kid a picky eater. If you
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
like they're not going to be ripping that label off. You, so we need to
Right.
remove our labels. But anyone who struggles with their relationship with food, right? So fear
Mm.
of new foods can happen at any age, right? There are definitely
Okay.
teens who like can't go to a friend's house for dinner because if they're not served their certain list of foods that they're comfortable with, they won't eat. So they just won't
Hmm.
go. So it can really interfere with their social
Yeah.
lives and kids are going off to
Yeah.
college like unable to enter into the social life of college because they have a limited number of foods they eat and they're afraid of eating new things. Yeah,
Hmm.
lots of people struggle with vegetables. Some people struggle with meat too. A lot of your picky eating
Hmm.
kids, then it goes right into teenagerdom too. We're eating chicken nuggets, hot dogs, sausage. And if you think about what those meats have in common, they're like pre-chewed. They're they're not tough. And so that's actually one of it's sort of a red flag where I tell parents put your detective hat on if your kids are tending toward those really soft pre-chewed meats, their
Yeah.
quote picky eating might actually be a chewing issue or a swallowing issue,
Yeah.
strangely enough. If they have trouble
Yeah.
accessing like a grilled chicken breast, or like something that has some toothiness to it. And
Hmm.
it could
They
be
might feel like
something,
they're going to choke or something. Like,
yes. Imagine like a 5-year-old who just doesn't have a strong jaw, doesn't have a strong chew.
yeah.
Um, they eating chicken is gonna be really hard. And nobody likes
Right.
to do hard things, whether you're 5, 15, or 55. So
Right.
they don't want to eat that chicken. They're going to say, I don't
Hmm.
like that. And we're thinking, oh,
Right.
they're so picky. Right.
Right.
And so then if the parents then sort of reflect that and create some pressure, or if the parents have sort of a permissiveness to them and they're like, oh, you don't want the chicken? I'll make you mac and cheese. You know what I mean? We can actually take what starts out as a very small physiological problem in the child. They just
Yeah.
need some like chewing therapy or oral myofascial therapy. And we can create this huge snowball effect that turns into what feels like extreme picky eating because we're enabling rather than fixing the problem.
Yeah, and a shame around like food choices when it really is more of like a technical problem with mechanics. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with like who they are as a person. But it can become their identity and a label that they take on, like you said. But that makes them
Yeah,
feel
for sure.
bad.
And a lot of
Yeah.
kids struggle with food textures. They might have some sensory processing issues one way or the other.
Yeah.
Probably there are a ton of kids out there with undiagnosed food sensitivities. So certain foods just kind of make them feel icky, but they don't have the words to articulate like, oh, my stomach feels a little off, mom, every time I eat.
Right.
And I've noticed
Yeah.
it's dairy. You know what I mean? Like, no, like kids are
Right.
not going to go
Right.
there.
Right.
They
Right.
just like they're even subconsciously, they're like, oh, like I don't like
Can't
eating.
stomach that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I just don't like eating.
Yeah.
So they say I don't like the food, but it's not about the food. Or like we know 10% of kids are constipated. It's probably more. Constipation feels like you're full and bloated and you put a little food in and you're like "Bleh," right away, you know. So kids who
Hmm.
feel that way, they're going to pick at their food. They're going to stop eating quickly. They're not going to eat good quantities. And we look at that and what's visible and we go, "Oh, picky eating." And really they just need, to clear their bowels better. It's crazy what
Right.
all the
With more
underlying
fiber or
factors,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
All the underlying factors that can play into what presents as picky eating, but it really isn't even about the food.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what you're saying, the parent's role is to become more of a detective, which is what
Yeah.
we talk about a lot in the podcast emotionally. You become a detective of what's kind of under the iceberg of behavior, what's
Hmm.
underneath driving the behavior, because the intention, the belief is that children do well when they can. Like,
Hmm.
and same with food, right? Like they will do well eating when they can,
Hmm.
but it's when they don't, it's not because they won't, it's because they can't. So something is in their way, and it's our job to support them, figure out what that is, and build skills around it or remove an
Hmm.
obstacle
Hmm.
instead
Yeah.
of assuming that they're doing it on purpose to make our lives
Yes.
harder, right?
That's so well said. And when you talk about a lot about emotions on your podcast, that can really play into how kids can access food. We know that if you're in a fight or flight response, that's the opposite of rest and digest, right? Your parasympathetic is
Right.
where we want to eat and we want to slow down and digest. If your child's stressed, it might not be about food. It might be about school or a social situation or parental stress
Yeah.
kind of projected onto the kid. Whatever it is, if they're kind
Hmm.
of feeling stress at eating times, they might look again like a picky eater and they really are just feeling anxiety, controlling the part of their world that they can control. Eating, sleeping, and
Hmm.
pooping are the three. Those are the three things we
Yeah.
cannot force as parents. Where do we have the most
Yeah.
power struggles? Bedtimes, meal times, and potty training, right?
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah.
makes perfect logical, natural sense that the kids are going to try to control that part of their lives where they can exert control if everything feels anxious and stressful and out of control.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I think we all as humans, nobody likes to be controlled. We like to be in control of ourselves. We just don't want somebody else enforcing control on us. And so,
Mm,
like you said, if we don't, if the child feels like they're losing in a lot of other circumstances, they don't have a lot of autonomy, this is where
mhm.
they're going to assert it, because physiologically probably they can't like they can't make themselves, they can't fake it. Well, some kids maybe can, but like
Mhm.
strong-willed kids, highly sensitive kids won't be able to. They will fight for that, because it's like a physiological, it hurts, right?
Right.
To push yourself past that.
Yeah, yeah, it's both physiological and psychological. So if when adrenaline
Yeah.
goes up, appetite goes down. So there's the
Mm-hmm.
physiology saying, I'm stressed. I'm probably not eating.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just the psychological, like that consternation of the world is going crazy, so I'm going to control this. Or even, we see it in kids where maybe parents are too permissive as well. We've got a lot. When I
Mm-hmm.
started working with parents of picky eaters, one of my great surprises, because I'm a bit of a kind of straight traditional old school parent, like not
Yeah.
not like super strict, but a little bit
Yeah.
traditional. And so like I would never let my child say, I don't like this meal, make me something else. Like not happening at the
Yeah.
Kimball household.
Yeah.
The number of families where short order cooking was happening, and parents had just sort of slid into it out of that fear of like, my
Yeah.
child's not eating,
Right.
they're gonna die. I need to make them
Mm-hmm.
mac and cheese, right? I have to make them chicken nuggets because it's my job to keep them alive. Like that's my primary
Yeah.
parental
Yeah.
duty, right? So many families had slid into this making 2 meals a night, making 3 meals a night to serve the children. And what that does, like it comes from a place of good intentions. Just like the
Yeah.
parents aren't saying like, I'm gonna, mess up my kid and make him a picky eater. No, they're saying like, I need my kid to eat calories. This is what's working, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the child, here's how it feels. It feels like there aren't any boundaries. So I know, I'm sure you know a lot about like toddler
Hmm.
development and how it really like the
Hmm.
job of a child is to say, what am
Push
I
the
allowed?
limits.
What am I allowed to do? What am I not? Yeah, where are my
Yeah.
boundaries? And so they're going to push with behavior. That's what we see. And with food, if they say, "Ooh, can I have this?" and there's no boundary, can I have this? There's no boundary. Can I snack now? Really? Cool. No boundary. It's actually anxiety inducing because
Yeah.
kids need someone to say, you have a fence to keep you safe. Inside that
Right.
fence, you can make some choices. You know, you can eat the carrots or the
Hmm.
pea pods or the radishes or the broccoli, and you can dip it in ranch or nothing or hummus, right? Like that's a
Hmm.
bajillion choices,
Yeah. Yeah.
but within limits. No, you cannot go make yourself a
Right.
PB&J.
Right.
No, you may not eat chips 20 minutes before dinner, right? So there's boundaries within
Hmm.
which the kids have agency, they have autonomy, they get to make choices, but they're
Yeah.
within some boundaries that the parent has set up because we know more than the kids. Right?
Right.
We know
Right.
about those nutrients and we know what will nourish them and how they need some times of not eating so they can build an appetite before they eat. Um,
Hmm.
and so there's that we can actually create anxiety in kids by trying to serve them and make sure that they're
Hmm.
fed if we do it in ways where we aren't giving them boundaries, where they're like, they're kind of in charge of the meal. If you're making mac and cheese, but they
Yeah.
won't eat anything else, it's like saying, "Oh, what do you want to eat? I'll cook you anything," you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's also like important for parents to not feel freaked out if the kid chooses not to eat. It's like it's their choice to not eat. And the same food is going to be in the fridge. We'll put up the vegetables and the dip. And then if you're hungry, you can take it out yourself. You're old enough, usually at this point when they're pushing back, it's like you're old enough to grab that, or even a toddler size, like whatever level.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to serve you again. This is for everyone now. And you can choose to
Yeah.
eat whatever or choose not to eat at all. But
Mhm.
no child will starve in a house when there's a fridge with carrots and whatever. Like, they will eat that if they're literally starving. Would you say?
There's a very, very small percentage of kids who
Small percent,
really will
right?
go on a
Okay.
hunger strike. Likely, you don't have one of those. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
but you have to
It's very
try.
small.
You have to at least try and say these are the boundaries, you know, this is how we're
Right.
rolling for
Yeah.
at least a week or two. Like if you have a kid who will
Yeah.
actually hold out, you'll figure that out. But
Yeah.
you can't give in on a daily basis or you'll never know.
Right. Right. And I know sometimes parents focus on like just one more bite to like,
Mhm.
um, but that's like you said, we don't want to force them, but at the same time, we don't want to too much boundaries. So, what strategies can parents use to help kids feel more confident and curious about trying new foods that doesn't require take a bite of this or else?
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, my favorite reversal on that is literally just saying, you don't have to eat this. Please put a
Okay,
bite on your plate because kids
got
can
it.
get really overwhelmed if parents plate up their food and there's like big, you know, plops of servings of
Yes.
different things. So we want to let the kids serve themselves. We say, okay, this is a new food for you. I understand you're nervous. Can you just put a bite on your plate? And again, there are some very few kids who are going to refuse that, run away from the table. Those are some advanced strategies. For most of the population, they'll put a bite on their plate, especially once they believe that you mean it when you say you
Uh
don't
huh.
have to eat it.
Okay.
So that's the perfect reversal. You can praise effort, not the results. So you wouldn't say, "Good job,
Hmm.
you ate all your soup." You'd say, "Oh, I noticed you tried something new. That is such a
Hmm.
great skill of trying new things," right? So you're praising the trying, not the quantity, if that makes sense. Or even
Hmm.
a sniff, like, "Oh, I noticed you smelled that. Was that a little like, was that scary for you? Yeah, but you did it. That's cool. What did you
Yeah.
think?" You know, and just like keep your openness. We want to really build a family culture of that openness and excitement and demonstrate trying new foods and maybe even show your kids like some things you don't like. I don't like my husband doesn't like cucumbers. And my kids think that's bizarre. They're like, "Dad, cucumbers are like water. They taste like nothing." So a couple times
Yeah.
a year, he'll be like, "All right, I'm gonna try a cucumber." And he kind of makes a big show of how he thinks they're still gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
funny, it's like
Yeah.
a family
Yeah.
joke, but still that helps build that
He's
culture as well.
trying. He's
I'll
role
try.
modeling. Like, I've tried it, and I'm deciding I don't really like it. I'd prefer tomatoes or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, and so we talk about how sometimes our tastes change even in
Yes.
adulthood. Like he also, same husband, you know, started liking a number of foods like asparagus and sweet potatoes in his 30s, which is
Hmm.
awesome for kids to see. Like I'm trying something and I learned that I like it now and I didn't used to like it, or I like it prepared this way but I didn't like it the way my mom, boiled asparagus,
Hmm.
apparently. He did
Yeah.
not like that. That's gross. But he loves
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
crisp fried. So we talk a lot about trying and kind of building that culture where trying something new is valued. Eating all your food is not even something we talk about.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, because then they have a chance to improve the skill
Hmm.
versus if it's like eaten or not eaten, then it's like the result. It's just too fixed, that fixed mindset, like
Yeah.
traps you. It feels like you can't succeed as a kid, right? Like I just
Hmm.
can't win. I won't be able to succeed. Um, and yeah, and we talked a little bit about like for parents that have this mindset around feeling anxious or guilty when their child won't eat a balanced meal. What mindset
Mm.
shift do you recommend to reduce mealtime stress? Anything else to kind of add to that?
I mean, just remember it's not your job. Because we
Mm,
can't make our kids eat, our job is what we serve. You can say, "Hey, it's
yeah,
dinner time. I want you to come to the table. You don't have to eat, but I do expect you to sit here with us, right? And you're going to
yeah.
put out a variety of foods. I always recommend at least three choices, if not more, at dinner so that
Okay.
kids,
Hmm.
if you have like just a casserole, kids are really, really stuck. It's all mixed together. It's all sloppy.
What do you say? But what do you say with a casserole? They can pick apart the things they like. Like I just made lasagna recently. There's a ton of layers,
Uh-huh.
eggplant and meat, and then some kids just like to pick apart the cheese and the pasta. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, it's your plate.
Yep.
It's all still touching, even though they don't want it to touch. But they could pick apart. Some
Mhm.
kids don't like the eggplant, but it's. I'm not gonna make a separate one without the eggplant just because I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
That's a little bit selfish too. But just saying,
No,
like,
no,
once
that's
it's like,
awesome.
is that
It's
okay
great
if they pick
exposure.
apart? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, first of all, there are some kids who won't pick apart anything that's already
Yeah.
touching. So, like, we have to talk about the various tiers of picky eaters, right? That's awesome
Right.
if your kids will pick it apart. But I would still say when you serve that lasagna, you should have a side vegetable and a salad and maybe some carrots and dip. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? There should be some other
Yeah.
options. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
we have a meal, egg roll in a bowl, cabbage and Asian spices, and like, it's so yummy.
Uh-huh.
5 out of 6 of our family likes it, and my youngest, Gabe, just doesn't. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
just doesn't
Yeah.
like it. And so when I serve it, I make sure that I have rice to put, under it, and that we serve
Mm-hmm.
a salad with like some nuts or like some heartier things that he can put on it. So he will not, he'll take
Mm-hmm.
his taster bite. Please put one bite on your plate. He never eats it. Um,
Okay.
but he'll have a salad with nuts and beans, and he'll have the side veg, and he'll have the rice, with some soy sauce. And it's not a great meal, but he's still got
Mm-hmm.
some different colors. He might not have a lot of protein, but I know that he's fine. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
someday, he's 10 right now, maybe when he's 14 or 15, he will actually like that. Maybe he never will. But we're still
Right.
demonstrating that we eat as a family. We eat the same thing. We have family unity. I don't mind if you have preferences, but I still want you to be an explorer. And I want that bite on your plate
Right.
every time. And that's
Yeah.
sort of that exposure. So if your kids are picking out the eggplant, great. Like they're touching it, they're smelling it, it's touching their food. So they don't have a fear of eggplant. They just don't love it, right? And
Right.
so the fact that they're experiencing it and having some exposure with the sights and smells and sounds of it, maybe not sounds. The eggplant's probably not talking. Smells, sights,
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
exposure actually will increase the likelihood that maybe later they'll try that eggplant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the biggest traps parents can fall into is if the kid doesn't like it, they stop serving it, right? And then
Yep.
how do you get used to something when it's never there? Like they can't get used to eggplant if you never serve them eggplant. But
Yep.
I know they're not going to eat it, so then you feel like I'm wasting food. So it's like a financially there's pressure and then like
Mhm.
values like passed down from generations, don't be wasteful.
Right.
Like, people are starving around the world and you're here throwing away a perfectly good meal.
Which is
Um,
why I say the taster bite. Don't give them a whole
yeah.
serving. Just say, I need you to put one bite on your plate. No one is going broke or going hungry, throwing away one bite, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But they
yeah.
get that exposure. So when you said, like, oh, I put eggplant in because I like it, I guess that's selfish. No, that's good parenting. You put eggplant in because you don't want to remove the eggplant because then if you do, they'll never experience eggplant. What you
Right.
said, it
They
makes
won't get
perfect sense.
close to it.
So we've got to
Hmm.
make sure we keep providing that variety, even when it feels like a dead end. It's not.
Hmm.
And of course, I teach kids to cook, and that's one of the awesome things. if you get your
Yeah.
kids in the kitchen cooking with you,
Yeah.
they get all those exposures we just talked about with zero pressure to eat because the kitchen's not the eating place. So all that stress, all those emotions of the table are gone, and you can
Yes.
increase those exposure opportunities. And that's like one of the many reasons that I love to get picky eaters into the kitchen and experiencing food in a totally different environment.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I'd love to talk more about that because I find that's really helpful with the picky eaters to let them use the kitchen as a creative space.
Yeah.
Even like using it to like get bowls out and put water in and then add like spices, like, you know, like
Mm.
6-year-old or 10-year-old, whatever. Like if they don't know how to make a real recipe and you're not in the mood to like do a recipe together, you can just let them like play around with ingredients, which I know some parents might be like, that's a waste of ingredients. But okay, if we can get ourselves out of that, like it was like $1 if you combine all of those things, like, you know,
Right, right,
it's
right.
worth of an investment for them to get in there. And then eventually, imagine the picky eater in the kitchen putting together a recipe that actually everybody else can eat. Let them
Mhm.
cook. Like if they don't like some of your foods, maybe they'll come up with their own versions of things that can be
Mhm.
a wholesome meal and they can be the cook half the time or whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
put them in charge because I find that picky eaters often they like specific things, but if they can have their own creativity about it, they will they'll eat their own food, you know, as long
Mhm.
as it's a balanced meal. I don't know if you thought what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, well, we know ownership, like taking ownership of your health,
Yeah.
ownership of your food is massive for confidence and for that
Hmm.
interaction. And so for sure, like we as human beings, we like closed loops. We want to start what we finish or finish what we start rather. So when a
Yeah,
child is
yeah.
involved in the creation of something, they feel sort of that bond to the food and that ownership. And so they're much more likely to be willing to try things regardless of whether it was
Hmm.
their own creative idea out of their head or that they followed a recipe. It doesn't, it's
Yeah.
not like magic sauce. It doesn't, it's not like teach
Yeah.
your kids to cook and they will definitely eat everything. But
Right.
it speeds up the process because they're getting
Hmm.
so much exposure. They're interacting with food with no pressure to eat, and they're
Right.
able to kind of create that ownership and that feeling of making friends with your food. Like, I was part
Yeah.
of this in the kitchen. Maybe I can be part of it at the dinner table too. And for sure, choices. Like one of my daughter is 17 now, and she has very specific preferences. I would never call her a picky eater, but some people might if they saw certain plates on certain days.
Hmm.
When if I'm
Yeah.
serving salmon, they're going to be like, "Oh, geez, Louise, she is such a picky eater." But she just has
Yeah.
preferences, as do we all. But she can cook, and she will cook amazing
Right.
spreads and because she makes what she likes, and so we all are fed very,
Yes.
very well on Saturdays when it is our
Yeah.
time to cook.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. So I think maybe thinking about letting the picky eater be in charge of, like some of the meals, if you can. Obviously, if they're little, you can help them, and they can
Mhm.
help you pick out a recipe, and you're obviously they're helping, but making it like a wholesome recipe, right? Like, so these are the choices you have. Like, you can't always make like
Mhm.
whatever like sweets, right? Which I'm sure is their preference. Like, let's make dessert again. Like, let's
Yeah.
make something that's not like so sugary, but what would you like to pick? Like, there's a variety of things.
Yeah.
And
And
then
that's
even shopping with them, right? Go ahead. Mhm.
oh yeah. Well, yes, shopping is a great place for exposure as well and for practicing that idea of building a culture of being open to new things. But
Yeah.
we've talked about choice within boundaries. And so if you would pull up 2 or 3 recipes max and say, "What do you
Okay.
think? What would you vote for dinner tomorrow?"
Yeah.
Don't give them a ton, but just 1, 2, or 3, and then they have
Hmm.
that little tiny bit of investment where now they've made like a
Hmm.
microtransaction, we call it in the marketing world, and they have
Yeah.
invested a little bit in that dinner. And then if they're, we tend to downplay the abilities of 3, 4, 5, 6 year olds, but they can definitely participate. We've had 4 year
Hmm.
olds in our cooking class using paring knives, using sharp knives.
Amazing.
But even with a butter knife or just the ability to measure, measuring a teaspoon
Yeah.
of something is a great place to start if you're thinking my kid can't do anything in the kitchen that's actually helpful.
Yeah.
They can just dabble and play. No, a 2 and 3 year old can measure a teaspoon of oregano to go into your, spaghetti sauce or whatever, and
Hmm.
then they
Hmm.
feel like they're involved and they have ownership. The good thing about
Yes.
the little kids is they can do less, but they also have lower standards for themselves. Like,
Mm.
if they have measured that teaspoon of oregano and you serve that meal and you go, oh, this smells so good. This tastes so good. Where'd all the
Yeah.
flavor come from? Me, right? Little kids are actually easy because we're way
Yeah.
smarter than them. And so now the
Yeah.
child is like so excited about his or her involvement with the food and they have positive feelings about the kitchen, the dinner table, all of that, just because they measured a teaspoon of an herb,
I
right?
love
Like
that.
that's so simple.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah, and this whole feeling valued for their contribution for the family, and also
Mhm.
feeling like they did a good job, feeling confident about
Mhm.
what they've done. I see this a lot with my kids, and it's like it always kind of surprises me. It shouldn't, but I forget how powerful it is. So, for example, I have three kids, and sometimes one of them will be like, I feel like cooking something, like randomly. It's like, I
Yeah.
feel like doing Legos today, or reading a lot, or whatever, like working with clay. And then one day it's like, I feel like cooking something. And so one of them will ask for help, and I'll help set them up, or they might do it on their own if they're older. But once it's done and everybody taste tests it and samples it, it's like, look, I made this for everyone, and here's yours, and here's yours.
Mhm.
And when the family's trying it, and especially if it's something that we enjoy, wow, this is amazing. Yum, this tastes good. The next moment, the other kids are all lined up. I want to make bread. I want to make
Ah,
cupcakes. I want to make, and it's just like, if you can get at least one kid in your family kind of going, and without making it like a competition, but
right.
more of like, there's enough room for everyone. If everybody would cook, we would admire everyone. Wow, the chef of
Mhm.
the day. Like, they really find so much like self-confidence in that, and they feel so successful. Even the picky eaters, like
Yeah.
they are, masterful enough to feed other people. The role reversal maybe is part of that too, because if they're not used to being the one that cooks food, it's just on the other side, it's like, I don't like that, I don't like that. It feels so powerless. And
Yeah.
but when they're the ones feeding the rest of the family, there's this like sense of maybe they're in control. Maybe they feel more like um, empowered. Yeah,
For
I think that's
sure. I
a
mean,
such a powerful trick, even if it's the trick or whatever. If you do it on purpose and you set your kids up, I think it works.
yeah, in our family, we're very careful to always thank the chef. And so we have very much a
Yeah,
family culture of gratitude. And so that
yeah,
happens naturally, regardless of whether the chef is mom or one of the kids.
right.
And when we think
Uh-huh.
about building confidence, we need to do an authentic skill well to feel real
Right. It
confidence. And
can't be like a failed meal and then everyone's like, it's amazing. They'll be like,
right.
okay, you guys are
Well, and
lying to me.
inauthentic skills, like good
Right.
job on your glitter project. I don't know, like we tend to
Right.
heap a lot of praise that isn't real, and I do think kids know that. In fact, my 10-year-old
Right.
keeps saying, you know, no matter how well or terrible I do at soccer, grandma is always going to tell me good job.
Uh,
So
yeah.
he is able to articulate that he no longer believes grandma's good
Mm,
job. So pre-articulation, the kids still feel it. And what is more authentic than nourishing another human being? It's amazing to give
yeah.
them that skill.
Yeah. 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 And like you said, speak to the growth mindset. You worked so hard on that recipe. I can smell the cinnamon. That was a creative idea to add the cinnamon there. It really
Mm, for
makes it
sure.
like reminds me of Thanksgiving or something like that, right? Like you're not saying just good job, great
Right.
work, thumbs up. There's more to it's the process, right? So they're more excited to
Mm.
come back and be creative with it. I also love the idea that cooking can be play for children, right? Children's language is play, especially when they're little, and cooking is a creative expression, and it can be a playful place.
For sure. I mean, we're working with your hands. You can dig your hands into that bread dough, or, using sharp knives is so like
Hmm.
dangerously exciting, like climbing a
Yeah,
tree. Um,
yeah, it's risk taking too.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I always tell parents if we're gonna someday hand our kids car keys and a cell phone, we need to be comfortable with letting them turn on our gas stove and use a sharp
Right.
knife because they have to
Hmm.
learn the process of taking beneficial risks.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I know we there's so much more to discuss. And also keeping teenagers in mind, and middle
Sure.
schoolers, because I know it presents a little differently, I think. And there's a lot of, we're not going to get into this today, maybe another podcast talking about
Mhm.
like food trends on like social media, and how teenagers can get like
Mm,
into like, I'm not going to eat oils anymore because they're bad for you, or like
right.
whatever. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of trends out there with different diets, and
Yeah.
teenagers are so susceptible to that because everything on social media is trendy. But for parents listening today that might feel overwhelmed with picky eaters, no matter if they're like 3 or 4 or 15, what's one simple doable change they can start with this week that you would say?
Yeah, exact same process, no matter how old the kid, or if it's your
Yeah.
husband and he's 45. It's called Lead with Your Ace. And this is using the appetite that hopefully your eaters are bringing to the dinner table, and you put
Uh-huh.
out what you most want them to eat first with zero competition. So for most of us, that looks like
Ooh.
veggies and dip or a salad, some sort of vegetable that has zero competition and zero pressure. I call it the poker face. So you don't get all excited about it. You just say,
Yeah,
here's an
yeah. Don't
appetizer. And
flinch.
guys,
Just
if
be
you're
like,
hungry, yeah. If
don't,
anyone's
I don't
hungry,
care.
like
You
dinner
can
will
eat
be ready
that.
in 10 minutes. Like, come on in, help set the table. And it's
Uh-huh.
just very chill, emotionally. Um, but if you do that, especially get into the habit of that, you'll notice that best, what we eat first tastes best. And so we want to use that
Interesting.
science and put out what we most want them to eat first. Lead with your ace.
I love that. It reminds me of the quote of everything tastes good when you're hungry. When you're
Mhm.
starving, everything tastes good. So don't save like the most important meal once their appetite has been subsided a little bit with
Mhm.
something else, like
Yep.
bread,
And
which
so,
is,
yeah,
yeah.
so no competition. There's just the one. I mean, it can be multiple
Yeah.
options, but they all should be in the same family. So you wouldn't put out the bread. Definitely not the
Yeah.
bread.
All the bread, because
No,
most
no,
people
not the bread
love
with the
bread.
carrots. No, no.
Yes, yes, fill up on that. Amazing. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your work out there in the world and also being here and sharing with our families how we can lower the stress on picky eating. So obviously it's multifaceted,
Yeah.
but for parents, start with one thing today because there's a lot on your plate already, nutritionally speaking, but also just parenting wise. And so progress over perfection for parents too, growth mindset, right? Start
I
with one
love
thing
that.
this week.
Yes, and I would love to unpack Lead with Your Ace a little more. In fact, I have a
Yeah.
picky eating challenge that your
Okay,
listeners
great.
can find at kidscookrealfood.com/delight in parenting, just for your folks.
Awesome.
And
Mhm.
it's one step per day for 5 days.
Amazing.
And so it's super doable. You just kind of build one thing at a time so that you're just
Mhm.
keeping little bite-sized chunks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to have that linked below on the podcast. And so anyone that wants to check it out, we invite you to. Thank you, Katie, so much. Appreciate your time. And I look forward to speaking with you again because I know we have a lot more to cover.
It was a delight. Thank you.
It was. Appreciate your time.